You are about to see a film which looks at permit to work. We should all be familiar with these, but are we? Ideally, you should watch this film with at least 2 of your colleagues, so that you can discuss what you've seen. We will pause at the end of each chapter and ask you some questions, so that you can reflect on what you have seen and heard. Permit to work systems are a regular part of working life on board ships. They ensure that crew members carry out proper planning for a given work task, and that they consider all associated risks and manage these by putting appropriate safety control measures in place. They also provide a means of communication and agreement between the person authorizing the work task and those carrying it out. You will follow permit to work systems for any work where the actions of one person may endanger another, or where you need to follow a series of steps to ensure the safety of those involved. In such cases, you will carry out a risk assessment, sometimes called a job safety analysis, with the objective of identifying all associated hazards. It's then your job to remove or minimize those hazards by implementing control measures and documenting them on the permit to work form. The risk assessment, use of control measures, and the permit to work are all formal parts of a safety management system. In most cases, they are well defined and straightforward to use. The procedures for many routine operational and maintenance tasks are in the Ship Safety Manual, operational manuals, and the planned maintenance system. Some tasks may only require checklists and work orders, but some will also require a permit. Many non-routine work activities will also require a risk assessment and permits to work, particularly where there is a high risk of injury. Your own SMS should clearly indicate when a permit is required. By itself, a permit to work does not guarantee the safe completion of a task. Other steps in the process need to be completed properly, and additional checks may be necessary. However, as each permit lists the safety requirements for a particular task, it does significantly increase the likelihood that you will complete the task without incident, making the permit to work system an important part of an effective safety culture. On your ship, do you know which jobs you need a permit to work for and which you don't? Can you give examples of each type? Did you see any of the work being done in the video and think that it could have been done more safely? What part of the process should have addressed things like that? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
Morning, Captain. We have a small welding job in the storeroom in the accommodation. Shouldn't take long. Do you mind signing the work permit?
Okay, I'll just go through it. So, you want to weld some brackets in the general store?
Mm-hmm.
And are you sure that all the checks have been carried out properly?
Of course, Captain. But as I said, it's only a small job. Shouldn't take more than 20 minutes or so. The fitter has lots of work to do before we arrive in port, so I think it's better to get the welding out of the way.
Have you moved the oil and garbage drums? I noticed they were on the other side of the bulkhead of the storeroom yesterday.
Yeah, I think the bosun moved them.
You think? And who will be the fire watchman?
The engine room trainee is the only person available. Well, he's very reliable.
He just joined the ship last week. I'm sorry, Paolo, but I'm not sure all the checks have been carried out properly. I can't sign this permit.
But the fitter is ready to start the job, and we have more welding.
Paolo, do as the permit requires. That's all I ask.
Okay, Captain.
Before we go any further, it's important you know who is involved in a permit to work system. A responsible person, sometimes known as the authorized officer, is authorized by the safety management system to issue and close permits. And a competent person is designated and authorized to ensure the task covered by the permit is completed safely. To ensure an adequate level of confirmation, the person who carries out the work cannot be the same individual who authorizes it. The responsible person will usually be a senior officer in the relevant department on board, and the competent person will be another crew member tasked with carrying out the work. Though more than one person may be involved in carrying out or supporting the work. When this is the case, the permit will apply to all members of the work team. Each company has its own safety management system, which will operate in a slightly different way. Depending on the requirements of your SMS and the nature of the work, other people, such as the ship's safety officer or the captain, may have to countersign the permit to work. For some high-risk work tasks, you may need to send copies of the risk assessment and the permit to work forms to the management office for additional approval. Under the International Safety Management, or ISM code, it is the company's responsibility to ensure that their crews follow a permit to work system on board their vessels. However, it is your responsibility to follow the procedures and use the system safely and properly. There is an important principle in this chapter. You cannot issue a permit to yourself or when you are part of the team doing the work. Is this rule always followed on board your ship? Are there any situations where this rule can be difficult to follow? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
We could put one in the hospital and when we have a two-man free cabin on A deck.
Yeah. What do you want, George?
Sorry, Captain. Chief Engineer's down below. We've got a small welding job to do in the
Okay,
workshop.
1 minute.
He's asked me to get this permit signed.
Hello? Yes? Okay. Can you call the bridge and ask them to locate the electrician, okay? Has the second engineer followed the permit checklist?
I believe so, Captain.
He hasn't signed the permit. Tell him to do so before the job starts, okay? Okay, just keep me informed about the situation.
Thank you, Captain.
Sorry, Peter, were we?
Yeah, about the visitors.
Depending on the type of ship, there may be a few individual permit forms, or there may be a comprehensive set, with each form matched to a specific task. Typically, permits to work would be required on all vessels in the following circumstances: entry into enclosed spaces, work that requires testing the atmosphere for the presence of gas, hot work. Working at height or over the side. Electrical work, particularly high voltage. Working on deck in bad weather. And lifting operations and the use of lifting machinery. You might also need a permit to work when small crafts are working alongside, such as bunker barges. For maintenance or repair work on pipelines and pressure vessels, and during underwater operations. On your ship, you might need additional permits for other tasks, all of which should follow a similar format. Personnel on board play an important role in passing information onto the company safety manager, so that new forms can be developed and added to the safety management system where appropriate. If you're following the storyline, you'll have seen that the captain is really busy and accepts someone's word that checks will be carried out, rather than confirming that they have been carried out. The assumption that everything will be okay lies behind a lot of accidents. Who do you think was at fault in this scene? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
Morning, Captain. I know you're busy, but can we go through this permit again?
Yeah, sure. Let's have a look.
I've been personally through all the checks. I've moved the drums you mentioned, and the third officer will act as the fire watchman. I've already briefed him about the job.
Good. Has the firefighting equipment nearby been tested and the fire main pressurized?
Yes, Captain.
What about the arrangements for the ventilation?
We have an extraction fan in the storeroom that we are going to use.
Okay. Very good. So, what about the welding equipment and the PPE? Any defects?
No. Everything is in good order. We did notice that the head strap for the welding mask was damaged, but it's been replaced now.
Okay, that's fine. Please tell everyone to be extra vigilant.
Okay, Captain.
Although they may be broadly similar, each company has its own safety management system and permit to work forms. You should always follow the procedures that apply to your own company and ship. But it's worth looking at the key entries you can expect to find on a permit. A permit to work relates to a specific task in a particular location, identifying the personnel involved and the defined time period, and certain common principles will always apply. The information should always be relevant, current, and accurate, and should clearly indicate the location of the work, along with details of the task itself. It's important that you only undertake work specified on the permit to work. You should also record any preliminary tests you have carried out, the results obtained, and details of any control measures put in place to make the job safe. Your SMS will specify the period of validity and the time limits applicable, and you should always observe this limitation. Generally, this will not exceed a period of 24 hours. Permits to work will be numbered and dated for recording and filing purposes, and will commonly reference other documents, such as the risk assessment, a repair procedure, and gas-free certificates. They may also record relevant details about the equipment used for the task, such as calibration certificates for measuring instruments and the numbers of lockout-tagout devices. The permit to work will also contain the signatures of the responsible person, the competent person, and anyone else involved in the process. On board your ship, are there any parts of a permit to work that don't always get filled in correctly? What could be improved? Click the pause button and start your discussion. A permit to work is part of a process, and the various steps correspond to important phases in the use and application of the form. Only the responsible person can issue a permit by signing the appropriate box to assume responsibility for the task. This gives the competent person the authority to proceed. The responsible person should never issue a permit unless they have ensured that all appropriate safety control measures are in place and working effectively, and that everyone involved has a full understanding of the task by holding a toolbox talk or safety briefing before the work begins. Check your SMS to see how many copies of the permit you will need. Typically, there will be one for filing and one posted at the worksite. The competent person should then countersign the permit to indicate their understanding of the job and the control measures in place. If you are unsure of anything, ask for further explanation. Once you have a thorough understanding, sign the form. Depending on your SMS, others may also have to sign the permit, such as the safety officer or captain. This indicates their awareness of the task and gives them the opportunity to confirm that everything is in order. With most tasks, the permit to work will remain in force until the work is completed, at which time you must withdraw all equipment and account for all people and tools. The responsible person cancels the permit by adding another signature in the appropriate box on the form, declaring that it is safe to restore the power and restarts the machinery and equipment. The permit may also include specific statements to confirm these items, which the responsible person needs to sign off. If any further work is required, you will require a new permit. There may be occasions where the responsible person may need to transfer the authority of a task to a different officer. Once they are fully aware of the conditions listed in the permit, the new responsible person signs the form to indicate the transfer of responsibility. If a new team takes over a larger task in progress, they will require a new permit to work, and it will be necessary to stop the job and conduct another toolbox talk or safety briefing. Your SMS will indicate what you should do with copies of the permit to work when a task is finished. This outlines the length of time on board copies will need to be retained and any requirement to forward a cancelled copy to the office. Many vessels destroy any additional copies of a cancelled permit in order to avoid any possible confusion, but you should always follow your company's procedures. We see that 5 years ago there were combustible materials left near the workplace, and that these caught fire. Who do you think was at fault for this? The authorized person, the competent person, or the person doing the job? If you were the person doing the job, what would you have done? Click the pause button and start your discussion. Throughout this video, we've looked at permits to work as an important part of your vessel's safety management system, which will contain details on how to use permits to work and how they affect you. Required for routine and non-routine tasks. Shipping companies use permits to work to confirm that there are appropriate safety control measures in place, as well as effective management of the associated risks. Permits to work also provide a means of communication and agreement between the responsible person authorizing the task and the competent person or people carrying it out. It features signatures that indicate responsibilities related to that specific job and other important information related to the task or safety control measures. Remember, a permit to work system is there for the safety of everyone on board. Make sure you always have a valid permit and that all members of the team are confident and fully aware of the safety control measures involved.
That's the welding in the storeroom complete, Captain.
Okay.
Captain?
Yes?
No, I just wanted to say that while Juan was doing the welding, I checked the other side of the bulkhead, and it was getting pretty hot, you know? So I think if we hadn't moved those drums you mentioned, they could have caught fire. Anyways, thank you, Captain.